Function with Purpose podcast. All things health, wellness, fitness, and education through the physical therapy perspective. I am Dr. Amy Bullock, owner and founder of Fortress Physical Therapy. Fortress PT is here to serve the Charlotte metro area by highlighting the importance of how and why physical therapy should be a part of your health and wellness lifestyle. Here we go. Welcome to Season 10, Episode 8 of the Function with Purpose podcast. This is our last episode of the season. So, welcome if you just joined in with me, your host, Dr. Amy, owner and founder of Fortress Physical Therapy. Again, this is our last episode to conclude Season 10, and then we'll be rolling into the next season 11 of the Function with Purpose podcast. Before we begin on today's topic, if there are any topics that you may be of interest, definitely drop it in the comments below or shoot me a direct message on Instagram. Instagram is the primary platform that I am on. So my Instagram handle is at Fortress Physical Therapy. So, okay, we're going to get to it on this last episode of Season 10. Something that I put myself through for about a year and a half now. And it's slowly starting to become more of a thing that I've noticed in the fitness and recovery culture. Rucking. Rucking to improve, I guess, parentheses, aerobic capacity or kind of overall health. So what is rucking? How can you start with it? What are some smart ways to progress yourself? And even from the physical therapy perspective, would this be something that would benefit you? And I think after doing this for about a year, just over a year now, it's becoming, for me, a 1 to 2 times per week of doing this at this moment. So what is rucking? R-U-C-K or R-U-C-K-I-N-G, rucking. Basically, it's walking with a book bag, a weighted book bag on your back or a weighted vest. The weights honestly can range from like 5 pounds all the way up to 150 or more. I was listening to a podcast a while back. I think it was on Dr. Peter Attia's podcast called The Drive, and he interviewed the founder of Go Ruck, who was a military guy, and they had to perform these weighted walking challenges when they would jump out of the airplanes with a heavy load on their back, which was most likely equipment because he was in the military. And he had to make it from point A to point B, to point B, I think in like a 4-hour or less time period. So it was a very interesting podcast. If I can find it, I will link it in the show notes. But so going back to what is rucking? Rucking is just walking with some type of weight, either within a book bag or a weighted vest or a plate carrier of some sort that you just strap on your back. So why did Dr. Amy start this? Number one, I had an interest. Number two, at that moment, about a year or so ago, I was still on kind of towards the latter portion of recovering from my Achilles tendinopathy. And I just kind of got tired of performing my long distance running. So I would do about 4 to 5 miles, but pretty much 4 miles one time a week of just jogging outside. So that took me just under an hour to do. And I don't know, just kind of searching for something different. And I heard of rucking, and I thought, you know what, I have a weighted vest that I typically use for the Murph workout that I do every Memorial Day. And I thought, okay, I have this vest. It's just sitting in my garage. Why don't I do something about it? And then kind of, see what benefits I accumulate, and also just kind of some tips that now I'm talking to the crowd about, of why I think someone or you perhaps may start doing this. So I remember when I first started rucking, or my first attempt, I thought, it's only a mile. I'm going to walk a mile outside with my mom on a Saturday afternoon in the hilly aspect of my neighborhood. And I'm just going to put my vest on and be a badass and, get some steps in, weighted steps in, and work on my suntan a little bit because I had a cutoff shirt on, or no shirt. I don't know. I don't remember. And, oh boy, let me tell you, that was a mistake. Number one, I had the vest on completely incorrect. And the vest, even though it's supposed to sit on your shoulders, kind of, the vest actually literally sat on my shoulders, and my shoulders were what was holding the vest on my body, rather than the other way around, where I had to have it specifically set around my chest. So as I remember, as I was walking literally a half mile in, I thought, oh my gosh, we are a half mile from the house. We're not even near my house. I have to walk another half mile back with this weighted vest on. And my upper trap muscles that connect your head to your shoulder, those muscles there, oh man, they started to hurt. And right then and there, like my head, I started developing a headache. So, note to self, I'll go over these at the end, but if you are thinking about starting something like this, I think the number one thing is don't go super heavy, and positioning of the book bag or weighted vest on your body. Don't let it sag or hang on your shoulders. It needs to be snug around your like rib cage area / diaphragm, or if you do have a backpack, perhaps a hiking backpack, that you have the waist strap connected on to your hips. So that was my first experience with rucking with my 14-pound vest that I still continue to use today. So I thought, okay, my next time that I'm going to ruck, it's not going to be a mile, but I decided to do a ruck sandwich, meaning the one day out of the week, which typically started out as Sunday mornings, when I would run or do my recovery jog, I would walk a half mile in my neighborhood with my weighted vest on. So I rucked a half mile before. Then I would take it off and go run either a 5K or 4 miles, come back and cool down, i.e. ruck again another half mile with my 14-pound vest on. So my tolerance for that and incorporating that type of rep scheme was definitely the way to go for me. So I probably continued that scheme for about maybe like a month. And then I started switching things up. After about a month, I did a continuous 1 mile walk, ruck, i.e. as my warm-up, and then I would run like a 5K. So I would run, warm up with my ruck 1 mile, and then I would run 3 miles or 3.1, a 5K. And then I would cool down. Sometimes either I'd put the vest back on for a half mile or a quarter mile within my neighborhood and ruck or I would just do body weight and just get my heart rate down and walk another quarter or a half mile walk to cool down. So I started switching the scheme up a little bit. So I would warm up, ruck 1 mile, go run 3 without the vest. And then I continued that kind of scheme for probably about 2 or 3 weeks. And then I started slowly rucking a little bit more and running without the vest a little bit less. So gradually, rucking kind of replaced my running. And now what I do is I ruck 4 miles, and that takes me, I think I just did it last week, so that the last time I did it at this moment in time, it took me about 64 or 65 minutes to do 4 miles of rucking with my 14-pound vest. So I slowly built my time within the vest, as well as I've determined the appropriate position of how tight I had the vest around my core, so it wasn't really like hanging on my shoulders, as I mentioned when I first began rucking. So that after doing rucking for 1 to 1.5 years now, I kind of like it. I haven't really jogged for a little while. Maybe it's been about 2 months. So I've kind of replaced this outside ruck walk to replace my jogging. Why? So I'm not, running is pretty hard for me. I can do it, but it's just, I would rather be running and chasing after a soccer ball or something than just running. So I think by having the weighted vest on, that kind of gives me those feelings again, that like having the vest on like creates a purpose for me to go out and ruck and walk. So some benefits that I've noticed for myself from rucking, and even that is actually on the Go Ruck website, which I don't have any affiliation with, but I'll link some of the basics of rucking, and then you can kind of take a look on their website for some other details within their blog. But from my perspective, it kind of created like a psychological need to do it like weekly. And I liked that. I actually like craved it. I thought, man, if I don't ruck, then I'm either going to have to run or bike or not do anything, or choose the easy route, right? Not do anything. So it kind of filled the void or the psychological aspect of, okay, I'm putting this vest on for a reason, and I'm not just straight up running or walking with it. Like, it's getting me to get outside. Another aspect too is since I was reading and listening to podcasts regarding Zone 2 training or aerobic training capacity, I kept hearing and getting details on not only with running, but with rucking or being outside and walking, that incorporating nasal breathing can help promote training in this Zone 2 aerobic capacity range. So when I did ruck, every time I've rucked, I would nasal breathe. So I would inhale and exhale through my nose, and my mouth stayed closed the whole time. So that helped train my cardiovascular system to be in my specific zone 2 heart rate range. In zone 2, this will be a whole nother podcast, doesn't necessarily need to be reflected in your tracking heart rate. Zone 2 sensation is more so perceived by the person. So if you're walking or running, or lack thereof, if you're able to hold a conversation, how I'm speaking right now, you're most likely in zone 2. Although if you're tracking your walking or running, and you know that during that time period you were able to hold a conversation with a friend or talk on the phone, but your heart rate reflected that you were in your zone 4, that's not always necessarily the case. So every time, getting back to changes or promoting more of this zone 2 by rucking, for me, every time I would track it on my watch or my Fwp band, initially, probably like the first 6 months, it said I was in the majority of my time during my ruck, I was in the zone 3, zone 4 aspect of my heart rate. And now I'm pretty much in zone 2, probably about 70 to 75% of the time. And I'm rucking outside in the neighborhood where there's big hills in my neighborhood, and I go on the greenway a little bit too. I have access to an access point of the greenway here in the Charlotte area. So over time, you're creating a better cardiovascular response into the aerobic threshold of that particular aspect of cardiovascular fitness. So that was another thing that I noticed. So not only psychologically, it got me outside and it helped me like have a purpose as to why I was like rucking, but it also reflected to promote my body, my cardiovascular fitness to be in this zone 2, which has recently been a very hot topic in the fitness world and CrossFit too. So another thing as well from my experience, and even in relation to the physical therapy point of view, is I feel like a vest where I have a plate that goes in the front and the plate that goes in the back, and then I have to Velcro the vest around me with my straps over my shoulders. I feel like having a plate in the front and the plate in the back promotes you to be in a better like posture position or a more upright, as opposed to, when you think of this, putting a book bag on your back, and kind of the book bag would kind of promote this forward rounding of your shoulders. So like your pec muscles would kind of naturally round forward. Now, I will be truthful, I've never really rucked with a backpack, with the exception of when I would actually go on hikes with some friends. But performing purposeful rucking, I always had my vest on. So having the plate in the front and the plate in the back helped me get in this more upright position. And then I was able to finagle the vest to be really snug against my torso. So I think that's another great thing to help stimulate those posture muscles, which are endurance muscles. So they need to keep us nice and upright. So that's another cool thing that I've realized too. And then also I do think that from a personal side note, wear a t-shirt underneath the vest. Don't just wear a sports bra or go no t-shirt if any of the guys are thinking of that. Because as you sweat, you can create chafe marks. And especially guys, that probably would be very uncomfortable to have chafing around your nipples. So note to self, wear a regular t-shirt with sleeves in particular, because there's moments where I did wear sleeveless or cut off t-shirts. So my sleeves were cut off, and I actually did have chafing marks on the front of my pec muscles where it connects into my shoulders. So you just want to try to keep and prevent the vest from rubbing on your skin, to protect your skin. So, this rucking is just something that was different for me. And as I've spoke to athletes and patients of mine and even colleagues, I thought, man, how can someone incorporate this within their daily routine and just give themselves something a little different? So one of my colleagues, I'm like talking to him. He came in for a PT session, and I was like, yeah, I've been rucking. He's like, you know what I do? I put my weighted vest on, or I actually have a ruck bag at home, and I wear it while I'm cutting grass. And I was like, whoa, what a great idea. Wow. You're literally killing two birds with one stone. You're cutting the grass while wearing the rucksack or the weighted vest, and most likely you're probably in zone 2 training, and you're getting cardiovascular fitness on top of that. Holy cow, that is an amazing idea. So that's a little sneaky way that if you can't literally carve out time to perform a ruck, you can do it during your home chores, maybe your outside manual labor, from time to time. So that's a cool way that you can incorporate. And another thing too, I remember he said, yeah, whenever we would go on family walks, like in the evening, I have a kid that's in a stroller right now, and then we have 2 dogs. He's like, you know what? My wife pushes the stroller, and I'll walk the 2 dogs, and I'll put my weighted vest on too while I'm doing it. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is amazing. I like that. And I also had an athlete say that too. And I'm like, this is so good. So, all right, Dr. Amy, you're saying all this stuff about rucking. Like, why? Like, I'm not sold. I don't even understand. Like, what is the big deal about this? So I think we can kind of try to flip the script a little bit too. So from the physical therapy perspective, a patient or a patient population that comes into mind who would most likely benefit from rucking of some sort would be most likely the female population, because it happens to them, is if one has been diagnosed with osteoporosis or osteopenia, or needs a little bit of a different type of rehab if they're recovering from a fracture in a safe way, a fracture, maybe they had a fracture in a portion of a bone in their leg, and they need to get some type of weight-bearing activity, but running just isn't conducive for them. Rucking can be a little bit more tolerable alternative. So how do we create bone strength? We have to load it. We have to be in a weight-bearing loaded position. So not only do we have gravity playing a role, but then if we add a book bag or a rucksack or a weighted vest, we're giving our joints even more of a stimulus to create stronger bone and create a healthier environment. So those type of patients could benefit from some type of rucking. In fact, I have a patient right now. She was diagnosed with osteoporosis a year ago, and she took it upon herself to do her own home remedies. And about 3 weeks ago, this was during her second PT session. So her first actual true treatment, so we had her initial eval about a month or so ago, and then had a follow-up about 2 or so weeks later. We talked about rucking, and she was like, So after her visit, she texts me 2 hours later. She's like, okay, what do I need to buy? And I'm like, whoa, how about we just get a simple book bag and put 5 pounds in it and try to walk a mile or less, nothing more, and just see how you respond. She did it, texted me the next day. She was like, I actually feel pretty good. Okay, cool. All right, let's continue that until our next visit, which we see her, or I actually see her tomorrow. So I'm going to help her progress this, because when she goes in for her next exam, i.e. she will get a DEXA exam and a bone density test here later in the fall, or around this time, because that's probably when this podcast will go out. Hopefully she's created some changes on top of what she's already been doing over the past year with supplementation and such. So what a great alternative other than running to help create bone strength. And not only wearing that rucksack or book bag or weighted vest, but you're also getting some load through the upper extremity or the body, the top part of our body. Since basically from the torso up to our head, we aren't walking on our hands, so we're not really getting load through our joints. But by wearing something, that creates some load and some stimulus. So that's definitely from the PT perspective. I think that would be a great advantage for someone to start slowly incorporating. And the rucking can be performed anywhere. It could be on a treadmill. If it's weathering outside, it's super rainy out and we don't want to go outside in the rain, well, guess what? If you have a treadmill, put your rucksack on and walk a mile or so. So those are kind of the main benefits that I found personally for myself. It's a great alternative to running, especially from the PT perspective. If there are patients out there who can't really tolerate the load bearing with running, rucking is a great alternative. It promotes you to get outside. I know when I would do my rucks, that's when I listen to podcasts and I get my ideas for social media and for future podcasts and for coffee talks and enhancing the YouTube channel. So it creates a little bit more clarity thinking for myself. It creates obviously a more upright posture awareness. So then one might have to finagle the actual placement of the rucksack or the weighted vest on the torso. And then it could be done anywhere, right? Walking the dogs, like I mentioned, or if you're going to go on the greenway, right? Bring it with you. Throw it in the back of your car. Keep it in your car, because you might be able to ruck walk perhaps on your lunch break or something. And also, it can over time create better cardiovascular fitness, especially in that zone 2 range. And remember, as I mentioned before, zone 2 is more on a perceived effort exertion level rather than what the numbers reflected, like on your Apple Watch or based on heart rate. So lastly, I'm just going to touch upon, just to reiterate too, some drawbacks of rucking. Like, what are some things that need to be considered or we need to avoid? I already kind of mentioned, as I told my story, not knowing how to progress and build your tolerance in the vest. When in doubt, start with less. Start with less time with that load. It might be 5 pounds to begin with. Okay, I'm going to walk for 20 minutes. How did that feel? Okay, cool. Let's repeat that again one more time this week. Okay, that actually felt good. All right, so then if you still have the 5 pounds in your bag, you're either going to increase your time with that 5 pounds, or you increase the weight in the actual rucksack and still keep the same time commitment, i.e. 20 minutes in this case. So you either change the load or the time. And then over time, as you build tolerance, you can titrate both of those. So being aware and not knowing how to build the tolerance. So that would be my suggestion, but know that I'm not your physical therapist or healthcare provider, so perform at your own risk. And I already touched on this. Some of the drawbacks is the placement of the actual vest or bag, right? You don't want too much on the shoulders. You don't want it so snug that you can't breathe. And you don't want it too low on the belly, yet alone too high. So you kind of have to play with that sweet spot that feels nice for you. And then one of the major drawbacks too is, you start out with too much weight. Joe Schmo over here had a 70-pound rucksack. I'm going to do that for 10 minutes. Yeah, okay, good luck. Let's just say that. Too fast, too quickly, and too much load. So, rucking, I'm still going to continue to ruck from here on out and just kind of see where it takes me until I get bored with it. I might start a little bit of jogging, but in the future, I could definitely dig into a little bit more into, as I mentioned before, zone 2 training for aerobic capacity, but I'm living proof that just by rucking 1 to 2 times a week, I have been able to achieve that zone 2 status, and it's even reflected in my heart rate monitor through my Apple Watch as well as my Fwp band, which, by the way, not sponsored. But thanks for hanging in there, and that is my 2 cents on rucking to improve aerobic capacity and overall health.
That's a wrap for today's episode, Function with Purpose podcast. For more information on this episode, please check out the show notes within your podcast app. Be sure to subscribe, like, share, or drop your comments and questions below. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Thanks for the listen. Pursuit, precision, purpose.